going to do is to turn the oven on to 200 degrees centigrade. We're going to turn the switch to on. We're going to press this button in the middle of the display with a clock on it until it stops flashing, and then the dial just to the right hand side, turn around until it is on 200. Next thing is to measure out the flour, and we need to make sure we're doing that really accurately. So if it's not weighed out already, we're going to put a small bowl on the scales, turn it on, make sure that it is measuring on 0 and grams. If it is measuring in something else, we just press the unit button until it is measuring in grams and it's on 0. We're going to measure out 250 grams of flour. This one should already be weighed out for me. And the type of flour, there we go, it's gone to 250. The type of flour that we've used is a strong flour. That means it's got a slightly higher gluten content than an ordinary plain flour. You can use white or you can use wholemeal, and we're just going to place that into a large bowl. Next ingredients to add is either butter or oil. I'm just going to use some sunflower or any vegetable or olive oil is fine, something relatively flavourless. And that goes in. I'm using 1 tablespoon. If you're going to use butter, then you will use 15 grams. Then I'm going to do half a teaspoon of salt. So you'll need to find the half teaspoon measure, which is this small one here. And then pour that in. That's just going to add a bit of flavour to the dough. It can help to strengthen the gluten as well. And I'm going to get my fingers in now and just rub out the oil. If you're using butter, you'll rub the butter out. This can just help to A, add some flavour, B, it can also just help to make the dough go a little bit less stale so quickly. So we're just aiming to rub out any lumps that are in there. If you shake the bowl, any lumps will come to the top, you can see them easily and press them out. The last dry ingredient to go in is the yeast. This is a little sachet of fast action yeast. It means you can add it straight into the flour. And we're just going to give that a little stir. Next ingredient to go in then, I'm just going to rinse my hands, is some water. So what we're going to do, we're going to take some cold water from the tap and put it in the kettle. Put it on so it starts to warm up, but we're going to stop it before it comes to the boil. We want the temperature of it to be sort of like a nice warm bath. If you do forget about it and it comes up to the boil, then you can just mix it with a little bit of cold. Now, accuracy is key with this, with our measuring again. So we're going to take our scales, pop our jug on. It's going to weigh a different amount because it's a different weight to our bowl. Set it to 0 and millilitres. And you might be thinking, Miss, well, why can't I just use the measurements on the side of the jug? Well, you could, but it's not quite as accurate as using the digital scale. So we're going to do it this way. And we're aiming for 155 millilitres. Pour it into our dry ingredients now. And then take a spoon to stir it around. If I were to put my hands in at this point, they're going to get coated in the liquid and then go into the flour and get coated all in that flour. I'm going to end up with it all stuck on my hands. So I definitely go in with a spoon and stir the mixture until it's as mixed as we can get it before we then go in with our hands and start to just squeeze all of this in together to a dough. Now, if at this point yours looks incredibly wet and more like a bowl of porridge, we've probably misweighed somewhat and we'll need to add a little bit more flour. If yours is feeling like it just really won't come together at all, you may need to add a small drop. But if you've measured correctly, it should be perfect. If I bring it out onto the work surface and start to squeeze it together, you can see what I mean. It feels tacky without being unmanageable. It's not sticking to my hands or the work surface. It's not sloppy or dry, and it's just coming together into a lovely soft dough. What we're going to do is to knead this now for about 10 minutes to develop the gluten that's in there so that it's really stretchy and we're able to roll it out nice and large. This is what kneading looks like. We just use the ball of our hands to knead it and knead it, and we're going to just keep doing that. You can swap hands to share the work so we get a nice smooth and stretchy dough. I finished kneading my dough. The reason I know I finished, because if I press it really thin, I can get it really thin and almost be able to see through it like a pane of glass before it starts to snap. That makes me feel confident because it's nice and soft as well. I'm going to be able to roll it really nice and thin. Okay, and you can see it's quite smooth as well. Now I'm going to start off with it in a bit of a ball. So if you start off with it in a sensible shape, it's most likely going to end up in a sensible shape. And we want to roll it out to make whatever shape pizza we want. Most pizzas are round, but your tray is rectangular, so you might choose to make it more of a rectangle. But you can see if I press evenly with both hands, if I start with a circle, I'm going to end up with a circle. If yours is sticking to the work surface and it's a bit unmanageable, you may need to lightly dust a bit of flour. I feel like mine's tacky and it's wanting to stick a bit, but it's not unmanageable. If I start adding flour, I may start to dry my dough out. You can see it stretches out beautifully. So I've started it off. I'm going to grab myself a tray, which has got some greaseproof paper on it to line it. And I'm going to place it on. And because I wasn't sure how big I was wanting to make it, I'm going to finish it off on the tray, just using my fingers. Treat it like Play-Doh. You can stretch it. If it rips, you can put it back together. Make it whatever size and shape you want. Now, if you can get it, I'm going to go a bit oval with mine so it fits the tray nicely. Next, we're going to go on with some tomato. About 2 tablespoons. This is passata with a little bit of herbs added to it for flavour. If you use tomato puree, you're going to need to add a bit of water into it because it's quite dry. And then using the back of the spoon, I'm just going to spread it out evenly. I don't want too much, it'll make the base really soggy, leaving a little bit of a crust around the outside. Notice I put my dough onto the tray before I start adding my toppings. Next, I'm going to add the rest of my toppings. I'm going to grate my cheese. I've got 75 grams. We don't really want to use much more than that, if any more, because it's quite oily and the oil will start to cook out of the cheese when we put it on the top. I'm using a white chopping board. If you've got any other toppings that you want to put on the top, you can slice them really nice and finely, not adding too many toppings. And then we're going to evenly distribute the grated cheese. So I was careful not to grate my fingers. This is what 75 grams looks like. We don't want to use any more than that. And all the toppings are going to go on, distributing them really evenly over your base. So every bite of pizza gets some cheese or whatever your toppings are. Okay, let's spread them out. That's going to then go into the oven, 200 degrees to cook for. We're going to start with 10 minutes and take a 10-minute timer is going off, so we're going to have a check of the pizza now. Just having a quick glance in. I can see that we've got a nice golden brown crust on the pizza. I'm quite happy with that. It does seem to have cooked a little bit quicker on the left, so perhaps if I was going to do it again next time, I'd turn it around part way through the cooking time. We want to judge if the crust, silence that timer, if the crust is nice and firm, and in this instance I can see it is. It does cook from the outside in, so we want to check it in the middle. That's a bit more tricky to do, but I'm happy with that, so I'm going to pop my oven off, leave it to cool down, and then package it up. I actually decided to turn it around in the oven, put it in for 2 more minutes, and it now looks golden all the way across, which I think looks a bit better.